Hi everyone, welcome to Dr. Jackie's Keto Kitchen. Today I have my sister Lisa sitting in with me. She and I have both been intermittently following a ketogenic lifestyle.
Carb, very low carb, kind of a range.
Yeah, but basically we've been avoiding sugar for a long time, as much as we can. We have both variously gained and lost 120 pounds twice each. If you want to see the story on that, just see the previous episode. Today, I promised you I wanted to talk to you about macros. You'll hear that buzzword a lot everywhere at this point.
Everywhere.
And
everybody's all about the macros.
Right.
And figuring out what your macro should be is kind of like finding that needle in the haystack. Yeah.
The magic recipe.
Yeah.
And everybody's different. But macros refer to three things. And if you can just remember it this way, it's just easier. Just three things you have to think about in your diet: fat, carbohydrate, and protein. And then there's another whole area called macronutrients, which we'll talk about later.
Much later.
Too much. Don't want to give you like so much information that you're not going to be able to take it in and use it purposefully. So
the proportion of the macronutrients determines whether or not you're ketotic.
So you see what I've done here: protein, carbohydrate, and fat. And if you look on the Facebook page at Dr. Jackie's Keto Kitchen, you'll see I'm going to be posting my my macros this week, so that you guys can see what I'm talking about. For somebody who's in a ketotic or ketosis state, the macros should look something like that. Now you're going to freak out and say, what do you mean? 60% of my diet is fat? How only 40 is protein, and you're saying 20% of my diet should be carbohydrate? Yeah, that's what I do. I'm not saying you should do it. I'm saying that's what I do.
Well, and that's the basis of a ketonic diet.
Yes. And now the fat, though, I want to talk to you about this portion here, because that does not mean that you get to go out and have a pound of bacon, although you could. Theoretically.
Is it the best nutritional choice?
Is it a good choice?
Is it going to keep you in ketosis?
Yes. But what we're trying
to... Is it delicious?
Yes. But we're trying to find other sources of fat that will be nutritious and satisfying and add nutrition. We don't want
all the extra nitrates and all the...
Yeah, we want value-added stuff. So when I'm talking about fats, and we're going to go into this all in more detail, but when I'm talking about fats, what kinds of good fats do you eat in the day?
I like olive oil. I have nuts. I have seeds. Mm-hmm. I have my bulletproof coffee in the morning.
Talk about that.
So I'm on an intermittent fasting plan, and because my first meal of the day is not till much later, like 3 or 4 o'clock, I do a fat-supported intermittent fasting regimen. So in the morning, I'll have a bulletproof coffee. And what bulletproof coffee is not, it's a recipe. There's also a company that sells bulletproof coffee, and I think they are the creators of this recipe.
I think it's trademarked.
Yeah, so you can get like bulletproof oils and coffee and all sorts of things, but it's actually a recipe where you mix a tablespoon of butter, a tablespoon of MCT oil, which is a coconut oil, and they also have their own brand of coconut oil called Brain Octane, which is what I use, and then I put some monk fruit sweetener in it, which is a no-calorie sweetener, and I whip it all up in the magic bullet, and it makes a frothy sort of latte thing. And
so it's basically butter and coffee.
Basically,
fat and coffee.
So the bulk of my fat comes from that. It's quite fat heavy, but that kind of comprises the bulk of my day as well. Mm-hmm. So my intermittent fasting window is like 5 or 6 hours or so. So, and then after that, I'll have, whatever olive oil, or I'll have whatever fat is in the meat that I'm eating, or eggs,
avocado.
I have a lot. I also have a shake that I use either half or a whole avocado in.
Yeah.
So I get plenty of that.
Yeah, and you can easily even have recipes, which I'll post eventually when we get there, but there are recipes for candy that taste really good, and they're made just solidly of coconut oil, which is a little controversial, but we're gonna get into that kind of stuff later. Intermittent fasting is another interesting subject, and we will get to that in another episode. I will go into that in more detail, but a lot of people who are in these types of programs do fast intermittently. I do as well. Other fats that I like, I love nuts. I love, you know what's really high and great and it's so tasty? Macadamia nuts.
Yeah.
And I make this candy with macadamia nut, and then the coconut and cocoa. And
by candy,
it's like literally candy. Obviously. But it's got no sugar in it. But they're called fat bombs, and they're like,
and there's like a crap ton of recipes for fat bombs.
Yeah. And I'll be making them, and I'll show you how to make it, because I'll show you how to make some fat bombs at some point. But basically the point of this show, this particular episode, is to show everybody what we mean by macros. Okay? So for this week, I would source out some good sources of fat for yourselves, and see what kinds of things you would like to have. Last week we asked you to keep track of your food, and now you've seen your macro graphs. So now you can see where you need to be to be in ketosis.
And make sure it's crucial that, as you raise your fat intake,
you cannot eat sugar.
No, because that's kind of like the fat and the sugar combination is like the recipe for
that's what's killing us.
Clogged arteries.
Yeah, that's what's killing us.
So many things, stroke, heart attacks, all those things. So if you're mixing your fat and your sugar, then go low fat. Don't
do this,
because
and you can't go back and forth and
basically
back and forth.
A good example of high fat, high sugar is a donut.
Yeah,
basically that's where you are.
Yeah.
So if you're going to go super high fat, you have sure to your sugar is low.
And you have to make sure that your carbohydrates are at 20%. Otherwise, you're changing the way your body's metabolizing food, and as soon as you add sugar in, you're out of ketosis, and then you're back with higher insulin levels and all the inflammatory issues that go on in your body. So you don't want to do that and add 60% of your diet being fat, right? You don't want 60% fat and 40% sugar. So really, if you're going to err on the side of being a little high in one of these areas, I would say fat, protein. At least then you're not putting yourself at risk from metabolic point of view.
Additionally, if you do have, if your carbohydrates are a little high, you will notice it'll trigger cravings.
You'll start to have cravings. One of the benefits of being in ketosis is that, generally speaking, I rarely have cravings when I'm in ketosis. I know when I'm in ketosis and when I'm out, because when I'm out, I'll want a snack. And when I'm in, I'm
those
like,
scones look delicious.
Yes. And when I'm in ketosis, I'm like, food.
What? No. Not yet. Maybe in an hour.
Yeah, exactly. So it does change how. It also kind of changes how your brain, how you emotionally view food, because it's no longer, it's a fuel source, and it for me, it changed the way I viewed my own nutrition and what I was taking in. Really.
A little caveat. I don't know if Jackie's already mentioned it, but it kind of concerns me. Ketosis for people who have had a history of eating disorders is probably not a good idea. If you've had a bout with anorexia or bulimia or any kind of eating disorder, I wouldn't embark on this sort of program, because it changes your hunger signals, and if you have mental issues around that, it could be a recipe for a disaster. So
it's too easy to go without food entirely.
Caution people. I would do, and if you've had an eating disorder, I would just walk away and keep doing what you're doing.
Yeah.
And
agreed.
Follow whatever your doctor tells you to do.
Yeah, agreed.
Right.
And it's also a really good reminder. Every show, I've asked people that this is what I do, or I've told people this is what I do, but they really do need to see their own doctor and get the okay.
Mhm.
Because there are many reasons why this may not be the best program for people. So really, you know, I'm really speaking more to what I do and what works for me, and also trying to explain to you guys why people are getting on the bandwagon in regards to this. But you're right. There are people that shouldn't be embarking on this at all. Yeah. So for this week, look at your macros. Try and find good good fat sources, and let us know if you find any good, fun, interesting fat bomb recipes.
Post your
keto.
macros on the Facebook page.
Yeah, post your macros on the Facebook page. That's where we'll be posting ours.
Oh, really?
You too? Yeah.
I struggle. I struggle with the posting of things.
But we're gonna do our best. Thanks very much for joining us on Dr. Jackie's Keto Kitchen. Make sure you subscribe by pushing the button, the subscribe button. Yeah, no, it might be above Lisa's head actually. It's free to subscribe. You're under no obligation to do anything once you've subscribed. If you hit the thing that looks like a bell, then you'll get an email out when I have a new episode out. Thanks very much for joining us. Bye.